The students here who really began the Boston College Prison Ministry Initiative have a sign-up sheet here for if you can keep up with events that they have planned and activities, theological reflection groups they're starting. I'll pass this around. Just write your email and your name on it, and they can keep in touch with you that way. There's also some flyers out in front that look like this, and this is put out by the Prison Ministry Initiative, and they wanted me to especially mention that starting on Tuesday, November 16th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m., at the School of Theology library over near Lake Street, they're going to be having reflection evenings on those who are involved in or planning to be involved in prison ministry, theological reflection, support, fellowship. It can be kind of lonely ministry, so as you all know, so it'd be a good chance for people to come together. So that's my announcements, and I would also like to, I'm honored to introduce a good friend, brother Jesuit, Jack Butler. Jack has worked for many years with Sister Maureen at Framingham, so he has the experience of prison ministry, and he's also the newly appointed Vice President of Mission and Ministry at Boston College. So I'm really honored to have him here today sharing with us some of his thoughts, and also just the fact that he's here represents Boston College's appreciation of and support of our ministry. So here's Jack.
Well, thank you for letting me come and just have a few moments of your time. You're going to break down into small groups after this and have a discussion about prison ministry and about the vocation of the laity. And I'm going to say a couple of things to start that won't go over so well. And there are some really good people in this room who have dedicated their lives within the correctional system and are doing really wonderful things. But just like everywhere else in the world, just like in the Roman Catholic Church, you know our scandals. And just like in the profession of physicians, you have physicians that aren't so good. And just like with therapists, you have therapists aren't so good. Well, in the correctional system, you actually have some people that don't always live up to the mission. You have people that don't always live by what we hope it would be. And I'm going to start off with a story that had a profound effect upon me, and it was in an interchange with a correctional officer that changed how I understand prison ministry, but it won't be a nice reflection on that particular officer. So I don't want you to draw a conclusion that I'm talking about correctional officers. This was one particular instance with one particular officer, and it set the stage for how I understand prison ministry and why I think it's essentially the vocation of the laity. As a novice, the novice director came to me and two of my brother novices and said, "You're going to the prison. And you're going to go and you're going to see this sister by the name of Sister Maureen Clark, and that's going to be your assignment." And nobody asked us if we wanted to. Nobody asked us if we, had a desire for it. Nobody asked us if we were afraid of it. We just went. And as we were driving on out, I had all sorts of emotions. Part of me was like, I'm going to do something good. I was feeling proud about myself. I'm going to do something that's really good. Part of me was scared to death. What did I know about prisons? All I saw about prisons was on TV. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen to me? So I have all these things going through my head. At that time, because it's a lot of years ago now, at that time at Framingham, they didn't have the new facility they have now. We went to the back of this building that, honest to goodness, was crumbling down. And we went in, and it was absolutely a mess. And we went up to the plexiglass window, and this guy grunts. And so the three of us figured out the was license. So we gave him the license. And then we sat, and we waited, And we waited. And I'm getting ticked off. And we waited some more. And then this door, it was a steel door at the time, but that's all it was. You hear clanking the keys, and it opens. And you hear another, and the three of us figured out that was, come forward. So we get there, and then, keys, cuffs, medication. And we look around, keys, cuff, medication? What are you talking about? Do you have keys, cuff, medication? No, sir. Anything in your pockets? Well, yes, sir. We had all the stuff. Well, go back and there's a locker over there. Okay. We go out there and we put the stuff in the locker and we wait some more. Comes to the door and finally we go in. There's a metal detector there. Guy says, doesn't work. We have to wand you. Okay. Except the wand doesn't work. We're going to pat you down. And then at the old entrance of the old prison, that's when Sister Maureen came up, and I could see her eyes. And it's the first time in my life I'd ever been patted down. And as the process went, I'm sure it wasn't unusual, and I'm sure that it wasn't any rougher for me than anyone else, but I sure felt like this person was trying to tick me off. And it just seemed a little bit rougher, and it seemed a little bit more excessive than I thought was appropriate. And I looked over at Sister Maureen, and she looked at the three of us. And somehow, without saying a word, she communicated to us, keep your mouths shut. Because I wanted to say something. I wanted to say, get your hands off me. Or do you know what you're doing? Or do you know how insulting this is? I wanted to say something, but Sister Maureen's looking like... And then here's the line that is not reflective of correctional officers. Here's the line that I do not want to universalize, but it's the line that has changed everything for me. When we cleared it, the officer said to me and the other Jesuit, the other one was the head with Sister Maureen, you make our jobs more difficult. And I'm expecting, a handshake like Volunteer of the Year. You make our jobs more difficult. You give these people hope. And you try to convince them they're just like everyone else. And they're not. And you instill in them a sense of dignity that we have to push back down. And I went into the prison. And then I realized, with my Bible, that it was no longer about a Bible. It was no longer about preaching. It was no longer about talking about realized eschatology. I'm sure John McDargh talked about that, no? It was being a human being and reminding a fellow human being that they're a human being. It was showing up and letting people on the inside know that there are people on the outside who are exactly the same, who want to go and visit friends just like we all want to do. It was about doing the most elementary parts of the gospel, proclaiming people's dignity. It's about the most elementary parts of the gospel, about instilling hope. It's about the most elemental parts of the gospel of reminding people who they are made in the image and likeness of, and no one can take that from them. It's about the elementary parts of the gospel that say to people who, for the greater part, are people who are mentally ill or suffering from a very particular sort of mental illness, addiction, that they too can be set free. And the freedom is greater than just being contained in a prison. And slowly over the years of working with Sister Maureen, who taught me how to be a priest and how to be a Catholic chaplain, and probably a human being, that over the years, it's about being consistent and keep showing up. And about saying, when I'll be there on Tuesday night, you're there on Tuesday night. And slowly and simply letting people realize they have value. And all the defense mechanisms they learned to cope in a world that skewed things unjustly for them don't have to be used anymore, but they can claim their dignity. And that's the job of the Christian person. That's the job for every person of faith. Tom Groom started it off in our STM. If you go there and you can study and you can read all this stuff, well, it all starts whether you're an infant or whether you're an adult or whenever you got baptized, you were baptized as three things: as a priest, as a prophet, and as a king or a queen or an heir, however you want to say that. All of us are baptized to be priests, to manifest and make real sacramentally the presence of God's love in somebody's life. All of us. Everyone here who is baptized is a priest. This thing just means I was a loser and couldn't get a life. All of us here are priests. And in the encounter with those who are on the margins, we remind them who they are and their worth and their dignity. And we're all prophets. We become the voice for the voiceless. Why is there only one women's prison in the state of Massachusetts that has 800 women in there now? And it wasn't built for 800. Why are there more minorities in prison than people that look like me? Why are more people in prison who are there without educations or come from lower economic status? The prophets raise those questions to our politicians. The prophets become the voice of the voiceless. The prophets are the people who are outside the walls, who remind the rest of the world that there are brothers and sisters in places that we don't want to go, who are afraid and lonely, and maybe we should visit. And then there's those of us, the laity, who go in and remind people we're all heirs of the kingdom of God. We're all heirs of the kingdom of God. Nobody's excluded. The robber, the rapist, the murderer, those who we want to say are different than we are, the kingdom of God says no. There are many mansions. There are many rooms. Forgiveness is forever and free. Reconciliation is a possibility, and all have a place at the kingdom of God. And if we start to forget those on the margins, then eventually we'll forget that we're there too. That's the vocation of all of us, the supposed laity, whatever that means. Whatever that means. And then I'll stop so George can go and give you the instructions for the group. But then I found out that the laity and the mission of the laity in prison ministry is something else. The years in and the years out that I went to prison, I started to realize I was being ministered to by the laity. Because they reminded Jack Butler that I have hurt people, and I have robbed them, and I have stolen things. I said today to an earlier class, I'd still be in 12th grade biology class if I didn't sit next to the person next to me and cheat. I did it. Thank God I'm not your physician, because I did it. there's no one here that couldn't be there. And the men and the women that I have met in prison accepted me. And the men and women I met who did not lay down and who would not give up ended up giving me hope so that I kept going. And the men and women in prison who said, how can I reconcile with people that don't want to reconcile with me, taught me that the best you can do is be who you are and just keep going and let God pick up the pieces. And the people in prison ended up being the laity who did the ministry to me. That's our vocation. And it's a great vocation. And I hope next year we need a lot bigger room. Thanks for all you do. God bless you.